Hey guys, so this video is going to be a how to revise video from now until your GCSEs. I think this is useful for people who have already started to revise but just want to know how to revise more productively maybe, or for people who haven't started revising yet and who want to start revising but just don't really know where to start because it's all quite overwhelming. So hopefully this should help you organise how you want to revise and what you're going to do to be the most productive you can be to get the best results that you can in your exams. So my first tip is time management. So, by watching this, hopefully you've decided to start revising now, which is the first step, so great. But now you need to organise what days you're going to revise, how many hours, and then at what time in the day. So try not to plan too in advance because you're less likely to stick to it, and it might get too overwhelming, so you just won't want to stick to it. So I generally try and organise 2 or 3 days in advance and then go like that. So let's say today is Saturday. So tomorrow I have planned to do maths revision, to do a practice English language question, and then do chemistry revision. But then I've had to organise the hours so it doesn't clash with me going out with my friend. So I'm going to do maths in the morning and then go out with my friend and then do English and chemistry when I come back. And then for Monday I plan to do just maths revision because I have my maths marks coming up this week. So if you try and organise just a few days in advance so you know what you're doing for them, but then don't try and plan too in the future, I think, because you just get it gets a bit muddled in your head because it's a bit too much to think about and you generally won't stick to it. Okay, and then you need to prioritise what subjects you want to focus on, because you need to focus on maths and English because they're the ones that you need to pass. So make sure they're your top priority. And then after that, I would prioritise the subjects which you want to take further. So, for example, I want to do sociology, English, Latin, history for A-level. So they're the ones that I'm going to especially prioritise and focus on for my GCSEs because they're the ones I want to get the strongest grades on, moving on to A-level. And then maybe if you're doing an apprenticeship, then whatever GCSEs they want you to do well in for that apprenticeship, then try and prioritise them, and then or whatever you're doing after GCSEs, then whatever subjects you need to do well in to help you with that next step, prioritise them because they will be the ones that will mean something to you. So like for me, for example, like drama, like I do drama now, great, I want to do well in it, but it's not necessarily my number one priority because at the end of the day it doesn't necessarily matter what I get in drama because it's not really going to affect me after GCSEs, as long as I pass it and do as well as I can, obviously. But that shouldn't be my number one priority. And then my step number 3 is to avoid passive revision. Because if you just sit there and read all your revision guides, great, you're doing something, but it's not really going to go in. It's not going to go anywhere. It's a bit of a waste of your time. You need to be productive and proactive when you're revising, which is what I'm going to go through in a minute. So I'm going to say, number 1, pick a subject that you want to revise. So, for example, biology. Let's say you want to revise biology. You need to figure out what you know and what you don't know. Because if we're coming up to GCSEs and we're getting almost there now, we haven't got long left, guys. But there's not necessarily enough time to go in depth with everything. So at first, focus on what you don't know, and then if there is time, then you can go over things that you do know just to reinforce them. So my example here is homeostasis, the topic. So let's say I don't understand homeostasis, so I'll go to the chapter, so page 65. And then at the contents page you can see the subtopics, and then you can put stars on what you don't think you know and then go over that. So let's say for homeostasis, if I didn't feel I understood the nervous system, you can write notes on this page. So first read the page, which is passive revision, but you will make it active in a minute. So read the page, try and make sure you understand everything, and then you can write notes on the page and the information with that, and then maybe highlight the key bits of information in your notes, and then from that you can condense this information into flashcards to make it more summarised and easier to understand. And you can use a mixture of the notes and your more summarised flashcards to understand them. Or, it depends what you like, you could also do mind maps, because if you're a visual learner, you might want to do mind maps so you can get your information in organised in a certain way and maybe use colours. Draw little pictures, but don't like sit there drawing for an hour. That's not productive. And then you can learn off that. So my example here is, these aren't for specific topics, these are for homeostasis altogether. But if you don't want to sit there for hours and write loads of notes, then you might be better off doing this, but just on the topics, like the subtopics in the topic that you don't understand. So I've got 2 sections here because the topic's so big that I couldn't staple them all in one. So the first subtopic is just homeostasis itself. So if you can see, I just wrote notes on the topic and then highlighted the key bits of information. And you can see there I've moved on to the next subtopic, which is the nervous system, and then wrote little notes on that. That's just plain paper. And then continued that to the rest of the topic, and then also using bits of diagrams to help me along the way where needed. And then from that, I have condensed those notes into flashcards just to make it a bit less overwhelming for me. And if I want someone to test me on these notes, then I'm more likely to get them to test me on the flashcards because it's easier to do that, because they can just tell me, I mean that one's not a very good example, they could just ask me, tell me about the brain, and then on the back of the flashcard they can read the information and I'll try and tell them what's on there. Whereas with the long notes, it's a bit harder to test someone because it's just so much of it. But then these long notes are good for you to read through and try to understand. And also maybe if you're doing practice questions and you don't get something, you can look back at these notes and find it. And then also whilst you're actually writing the notes, the information gets in your head. So when you're learning the information and being tested on it, you're more likely to know it anyway. Okay, yeah, so I've talked about getting tested. So once you've wrote out your notes, your flashcards, your mind maps, you can type notes on a laptop. Any way which you can turn passive revision of reading a revision guide into active and making notes and being productive, do that, even if it includes doing something maybe a bit quirky, if that works for you, if you're more of like a creative learner. And then also, I mean, you've probably seen this in my history videos if you watch them, but I very much enjoy using my whiteboard for revision because it's a good way you can try and like blurt out and regurgitate all your knowledge. So for example, I might read this section on homeostasis, I'll read it, try and understand it, and then I'll try and scribble out blah 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 as much as I can remember on that topic. And then you can bring back your notes once you're finished, look at what you've splurted out on the whiteboard, and then you can see what stuff you've remembered well, and then the little bits of stuff that you haven't remembered. And then you can write them on a separate piece of paper, the little bits that you couldn't remember, and then you can continue looking at them, and then you can try and regurgitate them out, just so you're remembering everything you can remember that's on the sheet, to make your revision more active, and so you can actually learn the notes that you've written, because it's all well and good writing your notes, and when you write them out, then they go in your head, but you need to try and reinforce them. And so a good way of doing that is being tested on them by somebody else. But if you don't have somebody who can test you, then you can test yourself using the whiteboard method. Or you can just, it's called like blurting, you can just blurt out the information like that, but on paper, if you don't have a whiteboard. But I don't know, I feel like the whiteboard's a bit of a nicer way to do it, because you're taking a break from paper because you're writing your notes on paper. So it's quite nice to go on the whiteboard for a change and do something a bit different with that. Or you could get your laptop, look at your notes on paper, type up what you can remember and then compare it. It's another way you could do it. Okay. And then YouTube is a great resource which we have for free, which I think you need to make the most of and take advantage of. So for example, for history, you can use me. I've got corridor videos and I'm making some on Henry VIII and I'll make some on crime and punishment, etc. as we continue. Also, Dexter Bruff has videos on Vira which are really useful, so you can use them. And then watching them is just passive, but if you want to be more active with it, which I would recommend, make notes on the videos, like topic by topic, and then you can test yourself on the notes using the whiteboard, get tested on them, and then the cycle continues, so the information gets reinforced in your brain. I mean, I'm sure you know all these, but for science, free science lessons, again, very good. Write notes on the videos so it's more active. Maths, you can use Corbett Maths, and for English, Mr. Bruff are the ones that I use and find really useful. If anybody's got any other YouTubers that they watch for revision, then tell me below or DM me, whatever, because I'd like to know. That'd be quite useful for me. And then finally, practice questions, practice papers, because knowing the content is great, obviously you need to know that, but with a lot of subjects, especially maths in this case, you need to just practice it, because you can sit there learning it all you want, but if you don't have the exam technique, if you don't know how to answer questions, then you're wasting your time pretty much. So the best thing to do is practice papers. You can do sample papers. For example, maths has so many like practice papers, past papers you can use. English have less. They have some practice papers that have been from the 2018-2017 exams, and then also the sample papers. But then that brings me on to my second thing. If the subject that you're doing or the course doesn't have that many practice papers, like for something like maths, there's loads of practice papers, and because maths is quite general, you can use them from different exam boards as well. So we do edit all maths, but you can use AQA maths papers as well, or OCR, because they're all pretty much the same, because at the end of the day maths is just maths. But for something like English, it's quite specific and the spec is very new. So if you're running out of practice papers for English lit or language to do, then you can just literally go on Google and just Google it, because like you will see people who have made their own practice papers which you can do. And then also if you look on Bluedoll, because Bluedoll has practice papers, if you go in specific subjects, there'll be practice papers as well as just general practice questions. Like for science, there's exam pro questions which are really useful. And then if you're completely struggling, don't sit there whining, there's no practice papers, boo-hoo. Go to your teacher, because they're happy to help, that's what they're there for. So for English, for example, if you run out of English lit questions to do, which is very easily done, just go to your teacher and be like, hey, can you please write me out some practice questions for Macbeth and Jekyll and Hyde, because I've done all the practice papers and all the sample papers, and I'm sure they'd be quite happy to do that for you. They write you out a list of questions, and you can do the questions and get your teacher to mark them, and then you can get feedback on them, and that feedback is always useful as well. I think that's it. I think I'm done. So thank you for watching. If you've got any other videos you want me to do, then please leave them down below, and have a good night.